So, this is going to be about recessions and what you can do to survive, quote unquote, a recession that might come up, or might is coming up, or maybe even not. But yeah, as always, more after the intro. As every single day. But it's still amazing. It's still a lot of fun for me. Well, and with that being said, hello, welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics fucking podcast. And yeah, before I even start the episode, because I just, I would forget about it, this particular episode is also available as an audio-only version, which means that you can listen to it, which means that it is a way more efficient way to just listen to it rather than watching the episode, because the episode might be 30 minutes long, the episode might be 20 minutes long, the episode might be, it might even be 10 minutes long, but this is just a really rare thing. Most often it's just more than 20 minutes. And this is definitely something that not everybody can kind of afford, quote unquote, to invest 20 minutes in a random YouTube video, Therefore, the link to the podcast, so the link to the audio only version is down in the description. So check it out. It is available on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, on Google Podcast, on Castbox, on actually every single platform there is, where you might be listening to your favorite podcasts. There's also my podcast. So you can listen to it. It is way more efficient because you can do something simultaneously. Maybe, tidying up your room, maybe learning something, maybe just something. It is actually a pretty great and also pretty efficient way to learn just actually two things at a time. Somehow, like in theory. Just in real life, no. I think it won't actually work. But yeah, as I've already told you, we're going to talk about recessions, and I found a pretty great article from the cnbcmakeit.com site. Or is it actually cnbcmakeit.com? I think it is makeit.cnbc.com or something like that. The link definitely is down in the description if you want to check it out as well. And the article is called Mark Cuban, 7 money and career tips for young people to survive a recession. And before I even talk about the tips, you might know that the recession is considered the economical kind of level or the economical state, of an economy when there is a decline in the GDP, which is the gross domestic product, or some other economical parameters or variables or factors, when those parameters or factors are declining for either it is 2 years. Well, let's actually Google it. Why the fuck would I even kind of memorize that? A recession is a business cycle contraction when there is a general decline in economic activity. Well, yeah, actually there is a little bit of a better explanation for what a recession actually is. So in the United States, it is defined as a significant decline in economic activity spread across the market, lasting more than a few months, normally visible in real GDP, real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail sales. In the United Kingdom, it is defined as a negative economic growth for 2 consecutive quarters. This was actually the kind of explanation or definition that I was looking for. So negative economic growth, which means it is declining basically for 2 or actually more than 2 consecutive quarters, which is even the case for some countries at this point of time. And actually some countries, for example, Australia, I guess. I think it is actually Australia. Australia has been in a recession for 5 quarters now, or maybe 5 years. No, I think it was 5 quarters. But really just take it with a grain of salt. I'm totally not educated at that or in that space. So there's actually quite a lot of countries, that are near a recession or that are in a recession. The problem is we can't tell, if there's going to be a recession. At least this is something that a lot of people say they can, or a lot of companies say they can, but actually we only know when there is a recession when we are in one. And then it is a little bit too late for kind of trying to, trying to get some canned beans as we would do it in war, to just get some supply ready for these bad times. Actually bad times, no quote unquote, but it's actually bad times. And there is no way there, Unfortunately, we are still working on that, it seems to be the case, or I've read at least, to actually figure out how we could actually kind of predict that. But at this point in time, it is really not possible. But the thing is, the economy has been pretty good for quite some while. And it is actually the exact same thing with war as well. The last World War was from 1938 to 1945, which means it's 50, 70, 80, 90 years ago, and or since then, and it is quite some time, to be honest. And I'm not going to be like I'm feared that there's going to be just some world war in my lifetime or something. I am thinking about it. I am truly thinking about it, because the chances is not really low, to be honest. It is relatively high. But the thing is, we are not having a war at the time, which is amazingly great, which is really great, and this is something that we should be focusing on, not about some future things that could happen or might happen, but really there is no kind of sign that it will happen. But yeah, a recession can definitely happen, because the economy has been pretty great for quite some while. I guess it's been a decade since the last recession that we had, which was I think 2007 to 2009 which was the Great Recession actually. So a pretty severe one, a pretty severe one. But you might know about it. But let's actually move ahead and let's actually read this great article. So the Great Recession lasted from December 2007 through June 2009 and was the longest economic downturn since World War II. And now, a decade out from that recession, there is talk and word that another one is coming. More than half of US CFOs, and I don't know what the CFOs are, which means 53% believe the country will be in a recession by the end of the third quarter next year, a new survey from Duke University showed. And the number of Google searches for the word recession even spiked at the end of July. The resulting anxiety has people looking for advice on how to prepare and what to expect. And now here's Mark Cuban. And you might know Mark Cuban. He's actually having a net worth of 3 billion or something. If I remember that correctly, I've read it once, like, those things that you read once, because we're all headline readers. And then you kind of feel like you remember everything, but no. At least I don't. Some really kind of random facts I do remember, just because, I don't know, just because they might be interesting for me or not. But yeah, he's actually an investor. He's owning the Dallas Mavericks, I guess they're called, aren't they? So it is basically an NBA team. And he is also on Shark Tank, one of the judges, if you want to call him like that, I guess. But yeah, let's actually move to the tips that he gives you for actually surviving a recession or a potential recession. And those tips are actually pretty great. And the funny story behind it is that somebody, I think it was actually there you actually can see the threat or the tweet. No, I think it's threat, isn't it? The Twitter threat. And it actually emerged from a comment and actually a random person, I guess, or maybe it is a company, because it somehow sounds like a company or something. But, anyway, they asked Mark Cuban what his tips are for a potential recession. And then he just gave them, I think it is 7 tips or something, and they're pretty great. So the first one is refinance your student loan and any other debt you have. Interest rates are at an all-time low. Which is actually a pretty good advice, I have to say. And also people like Warren Buffett have said that, that it is actually a potential way to kind of reduce the amount of debt you're having, potentially, or in theory. But yeah. So Cuban suggests refinancing debt, and that is good advice. Andrew Pentis, a personal finance expert at Student Loan Hero, told CNBC Make It. With a strong credit history or a co-signer who's creditworthy, refinancing would allow you to nab one of those especially low rates that are advertised by lenders. A lower interest rate equates to less money spent on accruing interest as you progress through repayment, Pentis tells CNBC Make It. So just in the end, you're going to save some money, because you might know what refinancing is. I didn't know before. Like, I actually had to look up the word and whatsoever, but it is basically that you're getting a debt for your debt, which is actually something that a lot of countries are doing. For example, Austria is doing that as a country. They're getting just some money from the I think European bank, I think it is called, or something. I don't know. And well, yeah, they're going in debt for just paying off their debt. It is a pretty funny concept, to be honest. And the first time I heard it, I was like, well, is this actually a good idea? Because I don't think so. The thing is, it is actually a good idea. If we are in a recession, it is, to be really honest, it is a good idea, because you're basically, if you're having the option, if it is possible, you are in theory having the option to lower the amount of money you have to acquire, to actually paying off your debt, because you're basically getting a debt for repaying your debt. But because the interest rate in recession times are lower, because obviously banks want to lend money, I guess, this is the concept there, then you're just in the end having to just acquire way less money than before, just because you went in debt for the debt, and the other debt, the new debt, was having lower interest than the other one. I hope you understand what I mean, but I guess you do. You're a smart fucking person. You know what I talk about. That said, people's loan profiles and goals vary. Check the health of your credit score first to make sure you would be eligible for a better rate, Pentis said. Yeah, to just really check before you actually kind of try to do that and then it's not working in the end and you're just really fucked up and whatever. Yeah, please check it out. Please check if it is working or it would be working for the case, if the case would actually be there. But yeah. Also be aware that many lenders' lowest promoted rates are variable, meaning that they can just vary over time, or they can just change over time, which is not the exact same thing for fixed rates, so therefore look out for fixed rates and or for variable rates that might not really change that much, It could be the case. I do not really know. I assume it could be the case. So as for student loans, be careful if you have federal loans. Because the thing is, for federal loans is that there are certain things like loan forgiveness programs and payment plans that slide based on your income, which are somehow safeguards that can be lost by acquiring a new debt for paying off the other debt. So please look out for that, so that you do not have any problems afterwards, and that you're actually making everything worse in the end, which is definitely something that is really not good, obviously. The second one is save as much money as you can. The greatest opportunities come when you are one of the few with cash. Definitely the truth. And here is Warren Buffett again. Octogenarian investing legend Warren Buffett has a similar perspective for investing. A simple rule dictates my buying. Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. Buffett wrote in an opinion piece for the New York Times in October 2008. Which was right at the time of the recession, of the Great Recession. And obviously, it seems to be the case that Warren Buffett had some money back then. And I guess he also made some money back then, just because the thing with the recession is that everything gets way cheaper. Because everybody wants to sell something, everybody wants to have their money, and therefore they're selling a lot of things. And, in the end, it is better to get just $10 instead of $100 instead of $0. In the end, it's just going to be the case. And the thing is, if you don't have a lot of cash, you could buy some companies, some entire fucking companies on a fucking dime. You could, in theory, it would be possible. Still, I don't know, a dime would just not be a dime in the end for a whole fucking company. It might be just 10 million instead of 100 million, but still, it is a tenth of the original price. Therefore, it is just pretty good. It really is good, When you do just have the money, then it is really nice. Therefore, look out for that, and do not really invest. Like, it really does make sense, if the whole investment graph, if it is on a peak, in a peak, just, I don't know, let's just view a whole graph. Let's actually view a graph. Let's actually view a graph. And there you have a graph, and it is a one-day graph. It might not be the best one. Let's actually look at a year one. Yeah, and it's a little bit of never mind. The thing is, you can see there let's actually zoom in. 2018, in December 2018, maybe it's been 2019, the beginning of 2019. You can see that the price was way lower. Way lower, might be a little bit overdone, but it was lower than now, basically. In August 2019, or actually September 2019, it is at 3,000 for the S&P 500 index. And back then it was 2,300. So you would have been able to save $700 in theory, which is definitely something. Like $700 or $700. It is really good. Like, there's nothing to debate about that, I guess. There really is not. But yeah, let's move on. But I've actually skipped something where they were also talking about Buffett, I guess, if I'm sure, or if I'm correct, but I'm not quite sure. But yeah, never mind. Let's move ahead. So in other words, if you have the ability to invest when the market is down and prices are low, do it. Because you could get a bargain in recessions. The nation's many sound companies will suffer earnings hiccups, I don't know, as they always have, Buffett wrote in 2008, but most major companies will be setting new profit records 5, 10 or 20 years from now. If you don't think you can pick stocks like Buffett, Cuban previously advised putting your money into an S&P 500 SPX fund, which is basically the exact same thing that I've just shown you. So it is basically a fund, I guess, for the S&P 500, which is an index fund. Yeah. I'm really not that educated, even though it might seem like it, I'm really not. I really am not educated. I am not. The third one, understand the economics of the company you work for and the impact a slowdown would have on your job. The basic thing he is talking about there is that you should be really conscious about how the company you're working at is working, basically, how the whole system is functioning and how you could actually prevent yourself from getting kicked off and getting fired in a recession, in a potential recession that might come up or might not come up. The thing is, what I've immediately thought is, well, if you are just an incredibly valuable piece for the company, they are not going to fire you. So it also comes up to how valuable you are for the company in the end. Because if you're not really valuable to the company, then of course they're going to kick you off. They're going to fire you, because why wouldn't they? Should they just actually fire one that is incredibly valuable for the whole entire company just for the sake of keeping you? Someone that is actually not working enough or is just not getting enough sales in, or whatever it might be. Just think about that. It just really makes sense. And the thing is, in general, by knowing how the structure is working or how the structure is from your company or of the company you're working at, could really also, as he says, actually prevent you from getting kicked off or laid off, because, well, you could do something in advance. You could do something to actually prevent that from happening by maybe actually, working more in time so that they actually kind of consider you or consider to keeping you. Could be one of the things. But to actually use his words, if you recognize the risk, then you can anticipate or at least have a general understanding about how a change in the economy will affect your job. Cuban said, too many people get blindsided by layoffs when they could have seen it coming and maybe made a move in advance. The thing is, we can really see it in advance. And it is actually, I'm really wishing, that somebody that is actually needing that is listening right now. I really hope that you might be, if you might be some truck driver or something, something that might be laid off in the near future by AI, by something else, by autopilots, by whatever. Just really look out for that. I really wish and also hope that you're going to look out for that, because chances are there, and not only if you're a truck driver or just anything correlated to driving, it could also be something different, just really look out for that and just see which jobs are really not good to just maintain, basically. And now I think you do just have enough time to figure out something else that you could be doing, so that you can still make a living, even though just the other job was laid off by, in the end, by robots or by whatever it might be. But I'm I'm somehow believing in it, that it might be the case in 10 years or something, but I'm really not sure. The whole autopilot thing is like, we have it. We have autopilot, so chances are there in theory, but I don't know. Like, it is another space that I know something about, but really not as much as I maybe should to argue about it, or to just debate about it or whatever. The fourth one, the fourth strategy, or the fourth tip, I'm sorry. Live as much like a student as you can. The lower your bills, the lower your stress. Cuban is not the only one giving this advice either. It is your spending and not your income that dictates your feeling of financial comfort and ease, says the serial entrepreneur, self-help, self-made millionaire, and New York University professor Scott Galloway. I didn't know him before, and I haven't looked it up, unfortunately. So the definition of rich is having passive income that's greater than your burn. It is actually, I don't know if it is actually kind of the official something definition or whatever, but it just somehow makes sense. In the end, it really does make sense. The thing is, it is really easy to manipulate on and or somehow stimulate how much money you spend, because you can just not spend as much as you're spending at this point in time. You can just figure out some ways to not spend as much as you're doing right now, which might be selling your home and going renting. You could, in theory, be doing that if you're really serious about just maintaining wealth in terms of, I don't know, maintaining wealth, building wealth, whatever it might be. If you're really serious about it, you can do it, if it would be worth it. I don't know. I've heard it Gary Vee saying, and I believe in that, and it might be just worth for you, and it might also not be worth for you. You might also consider not eating out as much as you're doing right now. You might consider not buying as many stuff or as much stuff that you actually in the end do not need as you're doing right now. You might consider just in general not consuming as much as you're doing right now. Something that I'm in general seeing in the society or in society just really dominantly at this point in time, I have to say, especially in the youth. Just because I'm pretty young myself, I'm 18 years old, I am still attending school, and it is actually a pretty great way to see what first of all is popping in culture and society at this point in time, or actually in the youth culture and society, and just what is popular, to see that. And what I see is a lot of people that are wearing just branded clothes, which is definitely not something that's too bad, to be honest, but most often then feel like, well, it is probably the money of their parents in the end. Which I can understand, but the thing is, it shouldn't be the case, but because they're then living in a fake world in the end, you're then living in a fake world in the end, because you're basically using the money from your parents to actually buy yourself something that you wouldn't be able to buy yourself, because you wouldn't have the money for it. And then it is really like a thing, I have to say, like, don't do it. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to create a world for your children, from that standpoint of view on as well, that is not theirs, that wouldn't be actually able for them to sustain, if you wouldn't be there somehow. I also do understand that you just need a home and whatsoever, so this is nothing to debate about, but it is about just some things that actually nobody needs, but this is just some things that they maybe want. And in the end, why do they want it? Most often it is actually feeling cool, and or just feeling great, or just feeling cool to other people, and also looking cool to other people. In the end, it is actually pretty often the case, unfortunately, really unfortunately, because I don't know, like, would all those people be just as confident as they are if they wouldn't have those designer clothes or those just good looking clothes or whatever? And especially because, like, you don't need fucking designer clothes to look good in your clothes. Another point of that, or another part of that, is actually working out and looking good just naturally. Like, it is a pretty cheap way. Actually, it's a free way to look good in any clothes that you're wearing, potentially, in just or in theory, in real life, or practically maybe not. Because you can still just wear really baggy clothes and you would just look like shit in the end. But yeah, it is really kind of a debate on a high level in terms of living in a first world country and really not being, I don't know, really, yeah, never mind. So Gallo said His dad and stepmother are the perfect example. Together, they take in only 48k per month, per year, from social security payments and their pensions. He said, but they spend 40k a year, which means they are rich, because they are having more money than they actually need. In the end, for me, it is not really kind of real, quote unquote, definition of how to be wealthy or whatever, or how to be rich. But yeah, I know it is what it is. I do really have to say, I think it is actually, it is 7. You know what? I'm gonna go through the whole one, but I'm gonna skip the Quora question, because I'm not willing to have a really long episode, because I know that people are not going to watch it, and why then? Yeah. The 5th one, don't listen to any experts about whether or not a recession is coming. As I said before, nobody actually knows if it is coming, but we know when we are in a recession. And this is the point, we can't anticipate it, and you can't even predict it. Therefore, just really don't listen to them in terms of what you should be investing in, because as he also said in this article, they're probably going to sell you something, and this is the only reason why they want you to just invest in the market. The 6th one is, do all you can to be great at your job, but you have to be honest with yourself. And it is something that he also says is applicable to your business, if you're a business owner, which means, first of all, for the employer, or for the employee, just really be honest to yourself. Are you actually a good part of the company? Are you a valuable part of the company? And if you're not, you have to change that. As I said before, if you're valuable to a company, they are not going to fire you. They're not going to lay you off, because it wouldn't make any sense for them. It would actually be just hurting them. Unless it is actually okay, you are kind of the least favorable one or the least valuable one for the company. You're still valuable compared to, years ago or something, but compared to other people, you're really not just as valuable as they are. You know what I mean. The thing is, just be valuable for the company if you're working in a company. And I do also have to talk about something, but I would really like to talk about something. But, let's actually finish up with this, and then I'm going to talk about it. And also, when you're having a business, just really the thing is, if the economy is good, the chances there that there are actually a lot of small businesses, maybe even your small business, just because there's so much money in the system, just because people are actually able to fund you, basically, with the money that you're giving you for your products, for your services, whatever it might be. They are able to fund you in the end. They're able to sustain you through the products you're producing, through the services you are providing. In the end, it is really when there is no money, people are not going to spend money just on anything. They're going to be just really conscious about what they're spending it on, and they might not be spending any money anymore on your business, because they somehow feel I don't actually need it. And therefore, just really be honest to yourself. Is the product or service that you're providing to people, is it actually something that people are going to also invest in when there's going to be a recession, and maybe change it up. Maybe you're going to just add something to your business or whatever. And the 7th and last one is, be someone who reduces stress rather than increases it for your boss and everyone around you. The main point there is that you should just not be a person that is getting everybody down or everyone down. You should actually be the person that is motivating the other persons, especially in times of a recession where everything is just really fucked. You should really be the person that is motivating the other ones. You should be the one that is happy, that is bringing happiness to the other people, and all those things. You should not be the negative, the pessimistic, the person that nobody wants to be around with, because you're going to get so fucking depressive just because of you. You should really not be the person. But in general, I really have to say that you should in general not be the person, because why would you? Life is great. Life is just amazing. Life is just amazing, and it is what it is. Life is amazing. You do just have to kind of maybe even change your perspective to see that, but life is amazing. But something else that I'm willing to talk about before I actually end the episode, being an employee. Being an employee is definitely not bad. Something that you can see really often, and something that really is bothering me as well, is those posts on Instagram or any other social media website where it is like, okay, when you read 10 books a day, you're gonna just go from being an employee to a multi-million entrepreneur, which is actually the kind of perfect thing you can be. But it is not the case. It is really not the case for everyone. If you're an entrepreneur, you're gonna be an entrepreneur. Of course, you might be starting off as an just normal quote-unquote corporate employee and then just get to your entrepreneur level and then you make hundreds of millions of dollars. It is possible if it is making you happy. If it is not making you happy, why would you be doing this? Why would you actually be doing this? If it is actually something that you wouldn't like to be doing. If you're an employee and if you like to be an employee and you're actually making, the thing is, you can make way more money as an employee than you can with your small business. If your small business is not doing good or with a business in general, because the thing is, chances are pretty high that you're gonna not have a good business. Chances are actually relatively high, especially in times of a recession. Then actually being a high valuable employee in a company is way safer. And in the end, maybe even making way more money over your lifetime than having a fucking business. But on the other hand, if it is actually the case that you like to have businesses, and if you like the grind of having a business, then of course, actually have a business. Because it would actually drown your soul. It would actually not make you really happy if you are working a corporate job. Therefore, you shouldn't also be doing this, because it wouldn't make any sense for your happiness. And happiness is one of the things that we should all be a little bit more focusing on, because it really, really matters. It really matters. But yeah, and also being an employee is not bad. It is not just beneath in terms of just a level system or something. It is not beneath a fucking entrepreneur. Especially also not in terms of money. Like Tim Cook, he's just an employee from Apple or of Apple, and he's making $16 fucking million a fucking year. Of course, compared to the revenue that Apple is making, it might not be a lot, but it is a lot. Like he's just having a decent life, and he's able to have a decent pension as well. Therefore, yeah. But yeah, great rant. Actually, a pretty great rant. I think it's actually rant in the end of this episode. But yeah, and this is going to be the end of the episode. And I really enjoyed it. And if you have enjoyed it as well, please consider subscribing to the podcast and also subscribing to the YouTube channel. It would really mean the world to me. It would really, really, really mean the world to me. So thanks in advance. Please do it. And also like it and also dislike it if you have not enjoyed it, and please give me some feedback if you have not enjoyed it, because I obviously want to just make the best content I possibly can with what I'm having, because it is a lot of fun. And then if you're having fun making content, doing something, please make content out of it. Like we all can make a difference. We all can just get famous, quote unquote, or get rich by doing our YouTube videos or by making our YouTube videos. In theory, it is really possible for every single person on this fucking planet, and it is amazing. It is just amazing. But yeah, I wish you the best health, all happiness, and also success. And I also hope that you're going to remind yourself on you going to be remembered, which means your legacy, because we can totally shape our legacy, by being nice, and then being remembered as a nice person, just because we've always been nice the whole fucking entire life long. The thing is, no matter how nice you are and no matter how generous you are, there's still going to be someone that does not like you, and or just dislikes you or even hates you. It is what it is, I guess. And 3 other questions that I hope that you're going to ask yourself are: why are you here? What are you trying to change? And what is bothering you the most? And those 3 questions might lead you to figuring out your purpose, because purpose definitely matters in life. Therefore, ask yourself these questions, and I see you the next time, hopefully. So please subscribe, stay tuned, stay happy, stay cool, stay something. I don't know. I see you the next time. I hope.